Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Talktagon. It's been a while. We've taken some time off since last week, but we are so happy to be back. I am Ty O'Keefe, one of your co-hosts tonight. Usually, I'm joined by Craig Allen of Fight Night Picks podcast, but this week Craig has a very full schedule and vacation, a well-deserved vacation, I should say, planned at the end of the week. So we are so proud to announce a new member of our team, and I mean, there's not a better week to start than this. If you happen to catch my special on Five New Voices in MMA Media, you will know exactly why we've added her, and it's an absolute pleasure to have her on our team. Ladies and gentlemen, fan-sided MMA's Kristen King. Are you there?
Hello, guys. Hi.
And absolutely, we are so happy to have you. And I know Craig wants to extend his happiness with it as well. It's great to have you aboard. What are you, I mean, it's obviously a huge week, but what are you looking forward to most this week?
I'm looking forward to all the fights. I don't see a really bad fight on this card, and it's just one of those that you really can't miss. It looks good on paper, and I'm sure it's going to look good live. So I'm just excited for the entire card.
Yeah, and love him or hate him, it's great to have Conor McGregor back. I mean, he's just so damn entertaining.
That's the thing. It's like there are some moments where I used to get really tired of the antics and stuff like that, but seeing him come back and seeing him at the press conference with Khabib, I was in literal hysterics. I could not believe it. And I think part of the reason is it's been a while since we've seen that. We haven't seen that in 2 years. And I mean, he's doing his thing with his proper 12 whiskey. And I mean, I was cracking up with everything that he was saying. And I know a lot of people found it annoying, or maybe it was a little bit overbearing, but this is what Conor is known for. And that's exactly what Khabib said he was expecting. And he brought it to you. And that was so funny. So, I mean, yeah, sure, you can get annoyed easily by it. Of course you can. But he's one of those that walks the walk and backs it up with his talk. It doesn't even seem annoying at this point because of what his performances look like inside the octagon.
Absolutely. And I mean, I got to admit, I was so annoyed with the Mayweather nonsense last year. I know you worked, that was when you had just started out at Fansided too. You'd only been there a few months, I think.
Oh man, that was the craziest week because I was just thrown into this huge event and I was so lost. I was still a rookie and it was just so major. I didn't realize how big it was going to be, but that workload and how heavy it was throughout the week and on the night of, I mean, that's something that is probably my favorite moment at Fansided because I could really get a feel for like MMA journalism right then and there.
Oh yeah.
That
was a crash course. That last summer there were a few events. There were a few events like that, it seemed like last summer, but yeah, that was getting knee deep in that stuff. And I don't ever want to see Conor McGregor fight Floyd Mayweather again. I think there's a big difference between the Conor McGregor we saw talking trash to Floyd Mayweather and the difference, the guy we see now talking trash to Khabib. There's like a different level of severity, obviously due to their personal issues, but it seems like when he's in the octagon, he's really taking care of business. And it seemed like the thing with Mayweather was more of a circus, or you didn't take it that seriously at times.
Oh yeah, I agree. And a lot of people had that idea that McGregor didn't really belong inside of a boxing ring to begin with. He was really someone who was new, and for him to be thrust into this position in such a big fight against possibly one of the greatest boxers ever, it was kind of one of those things where it's like, this is more spectacle than it is fight. And, after the performance, I gave Conor a lot of praise because he really did stick in there for as long as he could. And I think that he did fine, but it was more so, one of those things you have to just watch just to watch. You're not watching it for the sake of sports. You're watching it because of entertainment. And I think that's where the fight got lost a little bit, because usually when a Conor McGregor fight or a Floyd Mayweather fight gets announced, you're like, yeah, I'm going to see some really, really good competition. But, and I'm not saying he didn't give Mayweather a run for his money. It's just we're used to seeing those people who work their way up to that point. When we got the Manny Pacquiao fight, it was inevitable that Mayweather and him were going to fight, but they both worked their way to each other. Conor didn't necessarily work his way to Mayweather, inside a boxing ring. So that's where it was a little different.
Yeah, and it wasn't a fight. I mean, all of like us MMA fans were sitting there thinking, I know I was sitting there thinking, he could just be fighting someone in the UFC right now. Like, it's
Right.
not the fight I wanted to see. And with the titles he had at the time, and I'm not sure if I can't even remember now if he got stripped of the titles before or after, of the lightweight title anyways, before or after the Mayweather fight.
I think that was
Regardless,
after.
yeah, regardless, it's just, it's not the fight I wanted to see. When I heard he signed a new 6-fight deal a few weeks ago or a couple weeks ago, I was so happy because that means we're going to see him more active. And he honestly, did you catch the Mac Life interview?
No, I didn't see it actually.
He was, obviously he owns that company, so they're going to throw him volleyball type, questions, whatever. But
Right.
I've seen him interviewed a couple times, and on Ariel Helwani's show this week too. He sounded like the old Conor McGregor. And after, like, I agree, the press conference we saw last week, that was great. But
Hmm.
he wasn't vintage like Mystic Mac. He was just a little erratic. I don't know if it's because he was drinking a little bit, whatever. But I was
Right.
really happy to hear him on Helwani because he was like vintage Mystic Mac, and it seems like he is tuned in. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I did read a couple of articles a few days ago. I don't know if this is from the same interview, but I did see that when he got stripped, he said that he kind of fell out of love with the sport. And, I understand it. But then at the same time, it's like, well, yeah, I would fall out of love with the sport if I got my title stripped, but it's not like you pursued any title defenses
Yeah.
surrounding that. You know what I mean? So maybe it was, I don't know if it was just, it was a money thing or if he really didn't feel like competing in MMA anymore. But I was glad, to see him and hear him talk about how he's ready to return, and the 6-fight contract is, evidence of that. And I'm excited to see because there's so many fights that fans have been dying to see that we may get. And it's great. I'm excited. He seems to be remotivated. I mean, this clash with Khabib could be one of the biggest of his career. I can't say the biggest because he's had plenty of those by
Oh
now in
yeah.
his career. So I'm going to say it's one of the biggest, definitely top 3.
Plus,
But
we don't know what's coming either, right? So
oh
it,
yeah, I
it's
mean,
it's so hard to say the biggest of his career. That's an overused term in MMA.
oh yeah, for sure. I think so too, because I see a lot of this is the biggest fight in UFC history, and I say, well, gee, how many times have I heard that before in the past until the next fight comes along? That's the
Yeah,
absolute biggest
and,
fight.
and to your point, would the Stipe Miocic Daniel Cormier fight not be more significant just because it was two very well established champions? I mean, that had
Yeah,
to, that was a hugely significant fight in MMA history, and it's like all of a sudden everybody already forgot about that. And how long ago was that? That was months ago. I mean, it wasn't
and
even a year.
it feels like forever ago because you
Yeah,
brought it up and I was like, you know what? They did just fight each other and Daniel Cormier is the double champ, but it just feels so lost now because
yeah.
Conor's back and he's got this chance to get the lightweight title again. And I think people are bypassing a lot of what happened with Stipe and Daniel. But of course, now we see that Daniel may no longer be the double champ thing. So
Which is insane in itself. I mean,
yeah.
he earned that belt. Enough of this stripping titles. I'm so tired of this. They need to just let them. If they win the belt, keep the belt.
Yeah, and he was
Yeah,
adamant that he was willing to defend both titles. I know that
yeah.
he had the fight with Brock Lesnar lined up, but I know nothing's signed. I know nothing's official. It has
Well,
been talked about.
Lesnar can't fight until that.
Right,
But Cormier says he's retiring in March or April when he turns 40. So
exactly. It's
we're
not
on
a
a
lot of
clock
time.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
right.
he seems like the type of guy who's going to stick to that too.
Oh yeah, for sure. If he's ready to go, he's gonna go because
Yeah.
Daniel, he has nothing left to prove in this sport. He's done it all. He's got his championships in Strikeforce. He's got it in the UFC. He has 2 titles at the moment.
And
You
a
know,
former Olympian.
he's such an accomplished athlete. There is nothing left that I would want to see Daniel Cormier do. And if the Brock Lesnar fight is the last thing that I see, great. If I see the Jones fight, the third one, I'm not necessarily too high on it. Neither was he. But if that's something that they want to go down before he retires, sure, why not? But at this point, do I really need to see Daniel Cormier, quote unquote, prove himself? No, he's one of the greatest ever. I don't think anyone's denying him that fact or that right anymore. Look at what he's done.
Yeah, and it seems like the Lesnar fight would be the right way to kind of send him off with a huge payday.
Oh, yeah.
And And if he fights Lesnar, I am a firm believer that he's just too fast for Lesnar. He's too
For sure.
He's too calculated. And he's an equally qualified wrestler. They were both
Oh yeah.
NCAA. They both dominated NCAA. And yeah. So, anyways, let's stray back over to UFC 229. I guess we kind of have to.
Yeah.
They It's hard not to think, in my opinion, that this Tony Ferguson Anthony Pettis fight is being severely overlooked. I mean, would you agree with that?
I think I would to a certain extent. I think the diehard fans are really excited to see Tony Ferguson and Anthony Pettis because this is a fight that was offered a few years ago, but I don't think nothing ever happened between the two. And I know that they've been calling each other out. And this is one of those fights where it's like, yeah, these are lightweight contenders. These are right up there about to get the belt contenders. And for them to have the co-main event slot, fantastic. It's right underneath Conor and Khabib. And more than likely, whoever wins this fight, it has to be a title eliminator, and it's going to more than likely give you the number one contender at lightweight. So is it being overlooked? Slightly, but I don't think so. I feel like it's well up there with Conor and Khabib because everyone wanted to see this fight a few years ago, and now we finally have it. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how that happens.
Yeah, I guess I kind of half agree with you. I think it is being overlooked a lot, but it is definitely something the division needs to get done. I
Yeah.
worry if Pettis pulls off the upset, I worry that he won't get necessarily. I worry that they'll give the Diaz Poirier winner the title shot instead of Pettis. Whereas if Ferguson beats Pettis, I believe they'll give Ferguson the next lightweight title shot instead of the Poirier Diaz winner.
I agree.
And that's crazy. That's like octagon math. It's
Yeah, for sure.
It makes no sense unless you follow the sport, whatever. But it's getting easy to predict, and I don't want to see an interim title. I'm curious, what do you think about this 165 division? Because it is honestly, it's a part of UFC 229 right now because it's been talked about so much this week.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not entirely mad at the division, actually. I liked that both Nate Diaz and Dustin Poirier were pushing for it because that's another fight that we'd love to see. And I feel like at this point, Dustin Poirier has been such a beast in his career and at 155, but it's almost in the same boat as like a Rafael Assunção at 135, where he's always just that one off from the title, but not quite there yet. So I feel like he's there. I do feel like Dustin Poirier deserves a title shot for sure. But if things go the way that we see or we may see on UFC 229 and Tony Ferguson does beat Pettis, he's obviously going to be the one challenging for the belt between whoever wins in Khabib and Conor. And that just kind of leaves, Dustin where he was before. That's why he took the Nate fight, because he was ready for a title shot. He called out Khabib, but knowing that he wasn't going to get an immediate title shot because Conor was returning, he took the Nate fight. So he may stick with that. And if it would be for 165, I am 100% behind it.
I'm not against it totally if they move welterweight up to 175. And because I don't want 5 pounds separating, because as you know a lot about boxing, and you know how that boxing used to be America's greatest sport. It was king of all sports. I mean, people would file in for, they fill up Yankee Stadium to watch a boxing match. And in my opinion, it died because they watered down the divisions. They got them so close together. There are so many titles and so many promotions. There's the WBC, the WBO, the IBF. There's all these, you know what I mean? And I worry every time I hear about more divisions in the UFC, simply because I'm terrified of MMA going down that path. And I don't think it will, but man, that would be horrible.
Of course it would. No one wants to see, the sport just die because of completely watered down divisions. I think I saw earlier today, Jose Youngs, he used to work with us, but now he's with MMA fighting. He was talking to Benson Henderson, and Benson Henderson said that he would welcome a weight class at like 162 or 163. And I was like, that number's kind of off. But then when he explained it, it's because of the increments between the division. You don't want to
155 and 170. It would be the middle point between lightweight and welterweight. But if Dana White's not budging on giving Poirier and Diaz, this
Yeah.
title fight, he's not gonna, there's never gonna, and I don't know if it's ever gonna happen. I kind of see Dana White sticking to his guns on this, but it's definitely worked its way into the UFC 229 conversation. I
Oh
mean,
yeah. I
go
think
ahead.
if enough people have that buzz, because as you can see, there was a lot of buzz surrounding 165 now, and then for 230, because of the current main event that they have, everyone was so behind Diaz and Poirier fighting for 165 title, and then we just kind of got thrown a curveball. And I think if enough people make enough noise about it, maybe we could see it down the line. I know he said he didn't want to introduce a new weight class until later on, but I don't know. He may budge. I think right now he's not, but who knows? Who knows at this point? I think if enough people are interested in it, which they clearly are by the reaction that they had with the UFC 230 announcement, I think maybe we could see a new weight class. It's just a matter of time and hopeful persuasion for Dana White.
And remember, Dana White's the guy who once said women will never fight in the UFC before welcoming Ronda Rousey like she was the Queen of England and, rolling out the red carpet for her, and deservedly so at the time.
Of course.
But, it's like, so it's hard to go with what Dana White's saying from day to day. I mean, it's, we saw Conor McGregor throw a dolly through a bus window and the UFC didn't do anything about it. I mean, nothing. Right?
Yeah.
So we know how Dana White thinks. He plays favorites. He changes his mind. So yeah, it's all up in the air. Moving over to this Michelle Waterson Felice Herrig fight. I'm curious. Do you think Felice Herrig's in over her head?
I can't say yes and I can't say no. I'm kind of in the middle. I think Felice Herrig she's game for this fight, and I feel like she does have the tools that could maybe give Michelle Waterson some problems. But Michelle has looked good. She's come back from a rough patch, and I think she may beat Felice. I don't know. This, for me at least, this one is definitely a toss-up. I think these two women are some of the best at strawweight, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in this fight. I think Michelle may slightly win it, but Felice is she's no easy pushover. She's not going to take this fight lying down. She's going to do everything she can to win. And she's done that before. That's why they call her the little bulldog. I mean, she's kind of like in her fights, no matter what. So it's gonna be a tough one for both women.
Yeah, and Felice Herrig, she's been grinding it out now for a while.
Oh,
and she beat Curran and then Grasso and Justine Kish, and then had that split decision against Courtney Casey, which brought her to that fight against Kolakevich. And that was a big opportunity for Felice Herrig.
Yes.
And she lost a split decision, which kind of, it's kind of like Octagon karma because she, just beat Courtney Casey with a split decision in the previous fight.
Right.
But, Michelle Waterson, it seems like she's yet to fulfill her UFC potential. There was a lot of high praise on, a lot of people had a lot of high expectations for her when she came into the Octagon for the first time. There was a lot of hype behind her, and again, deservedly so in some respects. I personally don't think Herrig's in over her head. I think this is going to be a closer fight than a lot of people are thinking. And if Herrig does win, I think it's going to be a bloody fight. It's going to be one of those fights that Herrig's starting to become known for. Those absolute just wars, and I mean, you look at that girl, her arms, I mean, they're unbelievable. She has definitely got an upper body strength advantage over Waterson, in my opinion.
Oh, I definitely think so. So that's why I'm interested to see what happens if they do clinch against the cage. Because, we've seen Felice get some real good shots up against in that position. So, I mean, and Michelle, she's done well, essentially, but she's not I don't think that she's going to steamroll Felice in any way. This is going to be a very, very competitive fight, and this is the fight that'll get both women to where they need to be in the division. The strawweight division is looking promising, with an amount of surging contenders like Jessica Andrade coming up. And, we had Carolina up there for a little bit. Unfortunately, she lost. And I think this fight is another one that could skyrocket either woman up there in the rankings to possibly fight for the title eventually. So we'll have to see how this one goes. I can't pick a winner for this one right now. I'm going back and forth with myself all the time. But I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people who share your opinion. It's so hard to gauge what we're going to see out of Felice Herrig right now, especially coming off such a, it's got to be what I would call a devastating loss, just because of
Yeah,
what the opportunity she lost because of losing that fight. Um,
exactly.
but yeah, it's definitely going to be one of the fights I'm most interested in. Moving on to this heavyweight fight between Derek Lewis and, man, has he ever become a fan favorite? And
Yes, he
he,
has.
he is entertaining as hell. He hits like, a brick. And we saw him get a very underwhelming win over Ngannou in July at UFC 226.
Yeah,
That was unbelievable, unprecedented almost. I had never seen anything like that at this level.
it
Do
was
you?
definitely very disappointing, that fight.
Oh yeah, and do you think that's gonna cut down on? Do you think that's hurt Derek Lewis for this fight against Volkov?
You know what? I don't think that it did so much. Obviously, there's a little bit of damage because I think Joe Rogan said this is the worst fight in heavyweight history or UFC history. I don't remember what he said during the broadcast, but I know I looked up when he said it and I was like, yeah, I can kind of see why he would say that. And it wasn't even hyperbole. It was essentially true based off the performance that we saw. But I think in that fight, the difference was everyone swore up and down that Francis Ngannou was this absolute killer. He hit the truck. And granted, he does. We've seen what he has done inside the octagon. We saw that vicious knockout of Alistair Overeem, which I don't think that I'll ever get out of my head. It was bad, but I think maybe that played a role in Derek Lewis's head. Derek Lewis has become such a standout at heavyweight that no one wants to jeopardize their position in the rankings. Everyone wants a shot at the champion, and Derek Lewis is right up there. I think when he took on Francis, I don't want to say that he wanted to play it safe. I just maybe thought he didn't want to engage in a striking battle with someone who very well had the chances of knocking him out in a fantastic fashion like we've seen before. So I think that's what it did for Derek, but maybe now he'll be able to redeem himself over Volkov. Volkov is a very heavy hitter too, but I think Derek might be able to get the best of him. Who knows? Who knows how his head is right now? Because I know a lot of people are doubting his abilities after that Ngannou fight, but I haven't given up on Derek. I know what he's capable of, and I know he can knock out anybody at any time. So I think he'll be fine going into this fight with a little bit of damage, but not that much.
Yeah, the only thing that causes me some concern is the back issues he had.
Oh yeah.
His back is an absolute mess, and it causes him such a severe amount of pain. You can see as the rounds wear on in his fights, it really starts to tear him down.
Yeah,
And
there was one point where we thought he was retired completely. I
yeah,
think it was the fight after was it Adelaide that they fought when him and Mark Hunt fought and he won, but he said that he was retiring or he lost, and I think he said he was retiring. I'm not
yeah,
even.
it was before Ngannou. It might have been Tybura or yeah, I can't remember who that, but I remember him doing that. I think he announced it on Twitter,
Yeah, he
and
said
then
he was
he came out
done.
he came out saying, no, we're not. I'm not going to do that. I was just frustrated, upset, something
Yeah.
like that.
But then even after the Ngannou fight, he said that his back problems were starting to resurface again. So one can only hope that he took the time to take care of that leading up to this fight.
Well, if Derek Lewis wins this fight,
Mm-hmm.
do you think it's enough to get him a title shot?
Not quite. I don't see a title shot just yet for Derek Lewis, and I don't see a title shot for anyone right now in the heavyweight division. If things are gonna go the way that they say they're gonna go, I think he's right up there. That'll be 3 straight with a win over Volkov, though. He might have to fight again because as heavyweight champion, I don't think that Daniel Cormier is fighting anyone anytime soon. So he might have to fight again, but it could very well put him in a good position for a title shot.
Yeah, it's kind of going to be a testament to what Volkov, what a win over Volkov is worth.
Exactly.
And that's never decided until after we see the performance, right?
Of
Before,
course, we still don't know how it's going to go. So let's just wait and see how it looks, and then we can make our decision after his performances.
well, before we wrap this up, I'm not going to let you get out of here without making fight picks, especially your first show. I mean, come on. So I know you said you don't want to make fight picks, but
Yeah.
we're making fight picks on the main card. All right.
Fine.
Okay. So Conor-Khabib, who you got, when, and how?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna say Connor maybe in later rounds, and I would say by TKO. I just feel like he has enough to do it. I'm a little worried about the 2 year layoff, but I don't know. You never know. Connor is a counter puncher. He could catch Khabib coming in the wrong way, same way that he did with Jose Aldo. But of course, it's different. It's at 155, and Khabib is no slouch. So we'll have to see. But I am picking Connor maybe in the later rounds.
And for the record, I am going to go Connor second round knockout.
Oh.
That's my guess. Okay, so co-main event: Ferguson-Pettis. How and when?
I am picking Ferguson by decision, I think.
Really?
I think he's going to go all 3 rounds because I think Anthony Pettis has kind of had this like resurgence all of a sudden at 155 after a failed trip to 145. And he looked great against Chiesa. So if that Anthony Pettis shows up and the Tony Ferguson that we know shows up, I think that fight goes the distance, but I still think that Tony Ferguson has enough to beat Pettis.
I agree. I think he's gonna win. I think he might submit Pettis though. I think Pettis might get a little too flashy. But
that wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Ferguson by third round submission.
I like that one.
Now this is a fight we glossed over, and it just honestly doesn't interest me. But
Really?
OSP against Dominic Reyes, and Dominic Reyes got a lot of hype coming in behind him in this fight.
Oh, for sure. That's why I'm looking forward to it.
So are you taking Reyes?
No, not at all. I am saying I'm looking forward to it because I think this is such a huge test for Reyes at this point in his career. But I do think that OSP gets it done, maybe in the first round. I think by KO.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like that would be it.
You surprise me every time.
What, you thought I was going to pick Reyes?
Yeah, I did, and maybe it's because I'm picking Reyes too. I don't know. I just think he's got a lot of momentum, so I'm going with the upset, but by decision.
Oh, that's fine too.
So Lewis-Volkov.
I'm gonna go Lewis. I think he gets it done. I let's say second round TKO. I'm gonna say that.
You know what? You convinced me. I'm with your earlier analysis. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with your pick. I'm gonna go second round TKO. It's gonna be messy, but yeah, definitely. For sure. And now the fight that you did not want to pick, I'm making you pick it. Waterson, Herrig, come on.
Oh, fine. If I had to choose, well, I'm giving you the pick that Wednesday Kristen would have. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna say Michelle Waterson by, oh my god. I want to say unanimous decision, but the way that things have gone in both ladies' careers recently, if I saw a split, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, I could see it going down that path as well. I'm going with Herrig and the upset, but by split decision. I don't know. I just got a feeling it's going to be close, and she's going to get ahead on the judges' cards. Before we wrap up, I'd like to remind everybody that our show, The Talktagon, is brought to you by GetDialogue.am. Very, very user-friendly, easy platform. Just head over to GetDialogue.am, click host a dialogue, sign in with your Twitter account, and that's it. No special equipment, no microphones. You can just have a show like this, or even better, anything you want to talk about, whether it's knitting or knife fighting, whatever. That is getdialogue.am. Kristen, thank you so much for joining our team. We are going to have Kristen on a regular basis. I am so happy to have her. And if you caught this episode, we will have it up on YouTube after the fact. And we know we always get a lot of listeners after the fact. So thank you so much for doing this, Kristen. And we will do a recap show on Sunday. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks for having me on. I hope Craig is happy, and I hope he has a good vacation. I know he deserves it.
Trust me, he's definitely happy. I promise you. You did as expected, you did an excellent job, and look forward to working with you in the future. So thank you for joining us, everybody, and everybody listens after the fact. And this has been another episode of the Talktagon.